What is going on, guys? Rewinds here, and in this video I'm going to be bringing you guys the full spoilers for Boruto 2 Blue Vortex manga chapter number 30. So how we're going to handle it this month is going to be a little bit different. I pretty much went through all of the pages that have been translated so far, and I made a summary of the important points of those pages. So I'm going to start off with that. But if you are interested more so in seeing the pages, I am going to include them as well in this video. It's probably just going to be a little bit later on if that's all you're interested in seeing. But I made a pretty extensive summary of what actually happens in the chapter, along with some of the, main dialogue. So I'm going to run through that. And some of the reason I'm doing that is because last month I ended up having some copyright issues with Shueisha, so this is just me taking some precaution to make sure it doesn't go that same way. That's why I'm formatting things different this month. But anyway, let's talk about the chapter. I do want to say shout out Felix for pretty much all this info. I will show you guys a couple of things here real quick too. First things first, this is the cover of the chapter, and the chapter itself is going to be titled Nuisances. And pretty much from here, I'm going to read you guys some of these summary points I have. So, let's start that off. Pretty much what's going on is that we have that cover page, of course, to kick it off. And we have the chapter title as well, which I've seen. I've seen it spelled a couple of different ways. I see Felix had it spelled a little bit different, but I've seen another page or two have it as Nuisances, so I'm gonna assume it's that. Might be wrong, but that's what I'm gonna rock with. Cover itself, of course, in my opinion, was pretty good. So Ikimoto continues the good cover trend, in my opinion. So good stuff there. The chapter itself actually kicks off with Mamushi getting up from that attack that Chocho hit Mamushi with at the end of last chapter. And there was a bunch of Mamushi that got hit by that. Those Mamushi all get up, and right then Himawari yells, "Watch out," and starts charging up a tailed beast bomb. And if you guys saw my last video, perhaps you might have seen that sneak peek page that showed Himawari using that tailed beast bomb. So that's something that occurred pretty much right away in the chapter, so it was a pretty quick thing. Right then, Shikadai and Chocho try to stop her because they're still in town, so, to prevent damage, which is, of course, the smart move to do, because what Himawari is doing is a bit reckless. So in order to do so, Shikadai ends up using a new jutsu that traps all of the Mamushi in a spear of shadows, and then he tells Chocho to grab it and then chuck them, and that's what Chocho does. So once Chocho does that, Himawari sends the tail beast bomb blast upwards towards them, which ends up taking them out. And honestly, really nice looking art for the effects of that attack. I thought that was pretty cool. Shikadai is mad at Himawari, saying that she's lucky they were there because that was way too reckless of a move, which I completely understand where he's coming from, because that definitely is a reckless attack by Himawari there. We then cut over to Inojin, who is telling Shikamaru that the plan isn't working and that the number of Mamushi is increasing. Meanwhile, Kobu is now saying to bring the Hokage for interrogation. Sai informs Kobu of an enemy and Boruto sightings as well, saying that the enemy is a Shinju. Sai says if Kobu remains here, that he may be exposed to danger. Kobu gets a little bit of more details from Sai about this, but he refuses evacuation and demands for the Hokage to come in for interrogation. So, to him, I guess, this interrogation is more important than his life. Honestly, Kobu, in this chapter, at least to me, I feel like he's doing a lot of dumb stuff, but he's just so dead set on this interrogation that that's pretty much where I guess his character is at, because he's not prioritizing the village really at all. And he kind of makes a point at one point too in the chapter where he's saying that, he answers to the daimyo. So that definitely, impacts some things. So meanwhile, now Inojin is informing Shikamaru that Mamushi has now passed a 100 count, which honestly is pretty crazy because They ideally wanted Mamushi to be within that 20 to 30. Now they're at about 5 times that amount if you go from 20, which is pretty crazy. So I would assume Mamushi would be pretty damn dumbed down by now, at least based off that. Um, Delta, we see her flying around and seeing a bunch of the Mamushi. Sarada is with her, and she's about to engage, but before she can do that, Shikamaru puts a stop to it for her and all the others. Shikamaru says that this is still something within his scope of predictions and that they're going to change the overall plan of action. Shikamaru asks if this is something he can end up doing later, but the answer pretty much ends up being no, Lord Hokage from Kobu, and then he says, rather, no, Mr. Nara Shikamaru. So kind of hinting that he's trying to strip him of his title and that he believes that he's guilty of aiding Boruto over here. Kobu then says he answers to the daimyo and will do what's in the best interest for him, or of him. And he tells Shikamaru that disobeying the daimyo's orders will be much more detrimental to the village than the Shinju attack, pretty much. So this is where Kobu, at least to me, he's kind of pissing me off a little bit, because I think he's so dead set on this interrogation he has coming up that he's kind of being a dumbass. And as a result, who knows, maybe Kobu's going to die in the upcoming chapters. We will see. But that connects to something I'll talk about later too in this video for the summary portion. So Boruto then tells Shikamaru that he's cleared out the south part of Sector D and is going to regroup with Team 10. And Shikamaru says that's fine and just to await further orders. The police then ends up making an attempt to capture Boruto. One of them grabs his sword and starts losing chakra. Boruto does tell him, though, that he's good at hiding and says to run if Shinju appears, saying that it would be a shame if he died. So little acknowledgement from Boruto there because he genuinely did sneak up on Boruto along with some of the other force. But, of course, they're not on his level. But that was a little, 2-page attempt right there. That was kind of cool to see. Boruto then leaves. Sarada and Delta are pretty much monitoring the situation still. Shikamaru ends up telling Inojin that he's headed to the interrogation room. Shikamaru tells Inojin to possibly even take command right now. And Shikamaru says that he thinks that Kobu will be forced to reconsider once some Mamushi clones actually end up coming nearby. And KOJI ends up then telling Shikamaru to hide his toad in his pocket. So that's how you know KOJI's scheming up something. Because right then, the next page, KOJI tells Inojin to stop the transmission of the current jutsu and switch to a different jutsu. So Shikamaru is now pulled up to Kobu, and he says that pretty much, I'm busy right now, we got a village emergency. And Kobu says Shikamaru may very well lose his job, so he needs to be present here instead. Kobu ends up saying that he's been suspicious of Shikamaru from the start and that his hunches are rarely ever wrong. Kobu also tells him to come clean with his crimes now and that in return he'll make his sentence lighter. In the next page, though, Inojin uses the mind transfer jutsu on KOJI's toad. And when that happens, it's used from the toad to Kobu, which ends up leading to Kobu pretty much going face down, like face planted into the table that's there, and Sai ends up checking in on him. As Kobu gets up, he says Papa to Sai, so I feel like that would be a giveaway for one to Sai. But Shikamaru is starting to realize what exactly just went on. But right then, the toad from KOJI whispers to Inojin to go step outside. And Kobu is pretty much telling the others now, with Inojin controlling him, that let's take a break. I don't really want any security by me either. And that's an order. So KOJI is pretty much instructing him now to go to the roof and to end Kobu's life. That was the big one-page thing that they did. He made a pretty big request out of Inojin. And to be honest, I'm not sure if Inojin is going to really carry this out, in my opinion. Especially because, in order to make a request like that, especially for a fellow person of the Leaf or even a high-ranking person in the Leaf, let's say, that's some pretty big stuff right there. And plus, I don't think Inojin is really, that kind of cold-blooded character that would do that. But I digress. To go back to what I was saying, what happens is that Sai says that he's surprised with what's going on, but he knows it's Inojin's mind transfer because he saw it in Kobu's eyes. So he asks Shikamaru what is going on. So Shikamaru's in a spot now where he might have to start telling Sai stuff too. Meanwhile, Inojin is hesitant, but Koji says there's no time to be questioning the morality of the situation, and that Kobu is fully their enemy, and Koji says no one will know about this happening except for them two because the line is cut off. Inojin says, "This is insane. Have you gone mad?" So Inojin, you could tell, is not messing with this. But right then, Mamushi pulls up and asks about Ada. And Koji pretty much says, "Good, this will do," as Mamushi is leaping in for an attack. And that is our chapter cliffhanger for chapter 30. So pretty much we progressed a lot, not more so on this battle with Mamushi in this month's chapter, but rather with more the Kobu side of things. And we did get to see a little bit more of Koji and Inojin interactions. Got to see, a little bit of Boruto here and there too. Got to see Sarada make an appearance. Mitsuki and Konohamaru were, of course, in the room too of the interrogation room, but the main, focus of this chapter was definitely Shikamaru, Inojin, and Koji for sure, along with Kobu. So that's where we're at in terms of the information. Now I'm going to show you guys the actual pages, but we're going to skim through them just so, I don't get cooked by the issues like last month. But here we go. So this is pages 1 through 4 coming up right there. I'm not going to enlarge them just to be safer. But first page right there was after Chocho's attack. Second page is Himawari charging that tail beast bomb. I'll try to go through it real quick if I can. Third page right here, Shikadai's jutsu. Fourth page right there, Chocho throwing Mamushi up. And then we get right over here to pages 5 through 8, where we have Himawari blast. There's the actual aftermath, and then Shikadai getting mad at Himawari, and then we have Koji and Inojin talking over here, and Kobu saying at the end there that he wants to interrogate the Hokage. Moving on, pages 8 through 12, just more talking pages for the most part, and pretty much he's getting that information and still says that he's going to resume his interrogation. Pages 13 to 16, we got Sarada with Delta over here. Then Sarada's getting orders. Boruto's listening in. More Shikamaru and Inojin talk. And then right then, the sensor unit summons Shikamaru for actually meeting with Kobu. So right then, we get to pages 17 to 20. So about halfway through the chapter, Shikamaru is getting called in again and just being told you can't disobey this. Koji kind of alerts the situation a little bit. Boruto, there's that attempt by the police to get him, and then there's that sword zapping that chakra. So that's leading to halfway through the chapter. Pages 21 through 24 right here kind of continues this on a little bit, and then Boruto leaves the scene. 23, Sarada monitoring, and 24 is pretty much Koji saying put the toad in the pocket and that Shikamaru is going to head to that interrogation room. And pages 25 through 28 right here, Inojin stops that jutsu to switch jutsus. We have Shikamaru and Kobu actually talking over here, and Kobu accusing him, and then you have Inojin actually using the mind transfer jutsu at that final page 28 right there of that current 4. So moving on, 29 to 32, there's the actual jutsu hitting Kobu. And then after that, there's Sai checking up on him. And then there's Kobu waking up and talking to Sai. And then Shikamaru realizing what just happened. Pages 33 to 36. Koji's instructions to step outside. And Kobu actually saying it through Inojin. And then he steps outside. And then pretty much right here, this is the big page where he says end Kobu's life. And then Shikamaru tries to go. But that's when Sai's like, what are you trying to have Inojin do? Explain yourself, pretty much. So, he might have to clue in Sai on everything soon. Otherwise, it could be, a little bit problematic. So now the last 3 pages over here, as we're running through, there's Sai asking a little bit more, and then there's Koji and Inojin kind of arguing, talking about the morality of it, and then Inojin calling him insane. But Mamushi pulls up right then, asking about where he can find Ada, and then he comes in for a attack. And that's pretty much where it ends, with him saying this will do. So that's the quick run through of the pages. Definitely let me know what you guys think of this month's chapter. I do feel like it did have a good bit of content still, where we did progress the story. I just kind of wish we were seeing a little bit more on some of the battlefronts personally. I do think it's still, it's still shaped up to be a good chapter, but I gotta think about it more. I definitely enjoyed last month's chapter more personally, but I still feel like this is going to progress to some good stuff in chapter 31. But another thing that I feel like would have been cool to see is maybe Damon actually run into Mamushi this chapter, but I guess they might be saving that for maybe next month or the month after that. I'm not sure, but this is a good cliffhanger though, because Kobu has been playing a pretty important role, and if Kobu does die, that could definitely mean some tough stuff for the village. So the political consequences of it could be some pretty significant stuff. So I see what they're trying to do, and yeah, I want to see the official version come out, and then I'll make a review on it. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I do have one more thing to show you guys, which would be this right over here. This is going to be the Volume 7 cover for Boruto 2 Blue Vortex. I think it's pretty fire. I feel like most of the covers have been good for the volumes, but this is probably, at least for me, a top 3, top 4, probably somewhere. It can be anywhere in the top 3 to 4 for me. Cover for Boruto 2 Blue Vortex. Solo cover of Kawaki with this Karma activated and with this staff just sitting down. Pretty fire cover in my opinion. Let me know what you guys think of that. But all in all, I think that's going to be it for this month's spoiler video. Let me know what you think as usual in the comments below. But if you guys did enjoy the video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to my channel if you guys are new. And as always, I hope you guys have a good day or night whenever you guys are watching this video. I'm Rewinds, and I'm out.